I'm Andre Haynes from Armed Forces Chamber PAC. I want to welcome everyone to the third joint endorsement interview for the endorsements of Veterans in Politics International, Nevada Democrat Veterans and Military Family Caucus, Nevada Veterans Association, and the Armed Forces Chamber PAC. I also like to thank our sponsors, the Foreign Exchange, Ava Bravo, Justice of the Peace Department 2 candidate, Shelley Berkeley, Las Vegas Mayor candidate, and Christian Bishop, Nevada State District 5 candidate. Also, please remember the silent auction. I'd like to turn over the portion of the interviews to our moderator, Patricia Lee, Nevada Supreme Court Justice.
Thank you to our esteemed panelists here who have taken the time today to ask some very important and engaging questions. And thank you to our candidates for coming to engage with them and so to let the public know kind of what your platform is and what you think. I've been asked to explain the interview process, which I'll do now. The panel members will introduce themselves by giving their name, position, and the organization that they represent. Then each of the candidates will be given 1 minute to introduce yourselves. Please include why you are running and seeking the endorsements of the entities here today. Candidates, please remember that this is an interview, not a debate. So when asked a question from a panel member, you will direct your answer to the panel members only. When you receive a question from a panel member, you will be given 1 minute to answer their question. Andre over here will be the timekeeper. And once you receive the yellow card, you will be given 15 seconds to wrap it up. Once you are given the red card, that means your time has expired. At the conclusion of the interview, we would ask each of you to give a closing statement and just either reiterate or state why you are running and why you would like the endorsements of the entities here today. Okay, so with that, we'll get started with the introductions. Let's start over here with Ms. Kelly.
Hello, everyone. I'm Madeline Kelly, and I'm representing Nevada Democrat Veterans.
I'm Yvonne Malone, and I'm here representing Veterans in Politics International.
Patsy Brown, representing Armed Forces Chamber PAC.
Andre Haynes from Armed Forces Chamber PAC.
Timothy Treffinger, Veterans in Politics International.
Hello, thanks for coming. Matthew DeFalco from the Nevada Democratic Veterans and Military Families Caucus.
Good afternoon, Martin Walker, Veterans in Politics International.
Good afternoon, Mikey Kelly, Nevada Democratic Veterans and Military Families Caucus, and welcome.
And I'm Gary White, President of the Moffett Point Marine Association. I am representing the Nevada Democratic Veterans Military Families Caucus. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you to our panelists again for your participation today. Now I'd like to give each candidate an opportunity to introduce themselves. And like I said, you'll have 1 minute to kind of explain why you're seeking the endorsements and why you're running. Let's start on this end with Mr. Nadell and just work our way down, if we could.
Well, thank you very much, folks. My name is Brian Nadell, and the reason why I'm running for Congress is because I feel that our country is in serious jeopardy right now, and I am here 100% for the people. Washington is broke, cannot be fixed, and that's why we need good leaders, people with common sense and knowledge to be able to fix these problems that we face today. And they're very simple because we can. And that's why I'm here. I am here for God and country. I'm here for the people. I'm not here to be a Washington elitist or anything else. I am here for you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Johnson?
My name is Drew Johnson. I'm running because, quite simply, I'm the most qualified person for this position. I've spent 25 years working at think tanks and government watchdog organizations in Washington. My job has been to give good lawmakers good policy ideas that turn into law at the congressional level. I also am well known as a government watchdog, as I mentioned, and one of the first things that I sort of uncovered in my early 20s was wasteful spending at the Pentagon in a recruitment program that was then taken and used for a much more effective way to recruit new candidates. So my father is a Navy veteran. My father-in-law is a Vietnam Brownwater Navy Navy veteran, and one of the things that's really compelling me right now to run is the problems I've seen with my father-in-law dealing with the VA. And so some of the solutions I have for that, hopefully I'll get to speak to in a bit. Thanks.
Thank you. Ms. Helgelien?
Hi. Am I? Okay. Hi, I'm Elizabeth Helgelien. I'm running for Congress in the 3rd District. So I'm a wife, a mother, a business owner, and a proud American. I served at the age of 27. I became the youngest female ever elected to the Nevada State Senate. I served on the Commerce, Labor, and Energy Committee, the Transportation Committee, and the Revenue Committee. I would be honored to have your endorsement. I love my veterans. I love my service members. My oldest daughter serves in the United States Space Force. My grandfather was a member of the United States Army Air Force. And so we are a military family, and having your endorsement would be amazing. I'm actually been inducted as an honorary member of the Armed Services Corps. For my service to our veterans in home ownership. I have passed a bill in honor of our female veterans when I was in the legislature. I've done so many hours of community service for our veterans as well, but I'd be honored to have your endorsement. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Mr. Schwartz?
Thank you, Justice Lee. My name is Dan Schwartz. Grew up in the Midwest. Went to school out east. Formerly Nevada State Treasurer, but for those of you here, I'm served with the 85th USA Artillery Detachment in USER, which is Europe. We were on a Pershing missile base. When I was State Treasurer, we did several things. First of all, we stood up for ESAs, which indicates the importance of education to me. 2 is we called out the commerce tax, a tax that really should not have been passed. And then 3, I called out the waste and graft in a fake automobile plant. I want to do 4 things. The top of the list, if elected, is national service for all. That means either military or non-military. 2 is term limits. We need term limits in Washington. 3 is immigration, close the borders. And 4 is fix the tax code so that it supports the middle class.
Thank you, candidates, for those wonderful introductions. We will go ahead and get started with the interview questions, starting with Ms. Kelly.
Hello, everyone. What is your opinion about wasteful military programs that degrade military readiness, takes money out of defense programs that are truly needed for the force?
Let's start with Mr. Schwartz.
We have 1 minute? I've just used 10 seconds. I think our military budget needs to be looked at. There is a lot of waste in it, but on the other hand, all you've got to do is look around the world today and see the importance of having a strong military. So the truth of the matter is I'm want to be in Congress. I want to look at the budget more carefully, but I think we need to look at the programs, at the military, at the personnel. I also think that veterans have been overlooked. I've heard all of these stories about the poor care that veterans are getting, and I'm a vet. I think I'm the only one up here, and those are my buddies. I want to make sure they're taken care of.
Thank you. Ms. Helgelien?
We absolutely need to, gosh, I don't think this is on sometimes. We absolutely need to look at all government waste. There's a lot of it, we know, but we absolutely need to make sure that we're supporting our military and our veterans. We need a strong military. We need to stand strong on the world stage. That's very important to us in our country, especially what's happening right now. If we don't get rid of some of the leadership that we have in the country, if we don't get rid of a lot of this government waste, I think that we're going to be ending up in a devastating war if we don't start supporting our military and our veterans. So we need to look at the waste and put the money where we need to put it.
Mr. Johnson?
As I mentioned, a lot of what I've done in my career is actually finding waste in the Pentagon. When you hear numbers of wasteful spending with the F-35 program, those are usually the numbers that I've found. With SIGAR, with Afghanistan, those are stories that I have reported. So I actually know where to look, know how to cut that waste, and more importantly, I know that there are things in the military that are being underfunded. A good example is housing right now. A lot of the money that we see in waste in other programs and projects could be spent in a much more effective way to make the military a much more attractive option for so many young Americans today.
Thank you. Mr. Nadell?
Well, there was something that I didn't get a chance to say before. Mr. Schwartz might be right. He might have been the only one that served in the military. My father was a flying tiger, an original flying tiger back in World War II, flew over China. He was a very common sense man, and I miss him dearly. But as far as the military is concerned, and our veterans, especially our veterans who served our country, they gave their blood, their limbs to protect us Americans. And when I look at what's happening in our military today with the wokeness, people that are coming in there that just shouldn't be there, I will support the military in every way that I can. When I see the homeless out there, I speak to these people because it makes me sick to my stomach. And a lot of these people served our country and we're in the military and we're not taking care of them. I promise you, I will make sure that does not happen. I am here to get things done and only to get things done for the people.
Thank you.
God bless people that served in our military.
Thank you. Ms. Malone?
Mr. Schwartz, you already touched on this a little bit, but I would just like to hear what your first set of priorities would be if you were elected.
Can we start with Ms. Helgelien this time?
Yeah, so obviously when I talk with the voters of my district, of course, people in my state and all around the country, one of the top priorities is to close the southern border. So that's definitely going to be one of my focuses. When I first announced I was going to run for Congress, one of the first things I did was sign the term limits pledge. I think we're all in agreement that we absolutely need to have term limits. There's a lot of corruption happening, and one way to stop that is with term limits. And then, of course, we need to fix our economy. We have so many people here that are struggling. Inflation is out of control. And so those are the things that I'm going to be focused on because that's what's important to the people.
Thank you. Mr. Johnson?
I think we're all going to agree on closing the border, addressing the debt, term limits, things like that. The one thing that I can say to the military community and the veterans community, there was a bill that was passed not too long ago, a couple years ago now, that allowed this great sort of interaction throughout a person's career from the time they join the military to the time that they're a veteran that allows their health records and their health information to follow them along. And that's something that hasn't been available. It's something that's coming online. And when that happens, a lot of the problems that we see with the VA, for example, my father-in-law moving from one state where he worked to the state where he retired and had to restart his life basically with the VA and take months and years to get some basic services, that will end. And right now there are people trying to stop that program from being fully funded. I will make sure that that program is fully funded. So to speak to the veterans community in particular, that is something that's certainly been on my focus, a main focus of mine, been on my heart.
Mr. Nadell?
Well, one thing I guess we all agree on, and I'm very happy to see these other candidates say the same thing, term limits. Term limits. Something that 86% of Republicans, 82% of Democrats, and 82% of independents want. So why don't we have it? I know how we'll get it. When I become a congressman, I will make sure it gets on the floor, a constitutional amendment. We will get term limits because if we don't, we're going to make sure these not only the candidates, but the people in Congress understand that the people want it. You don't vote for it. We're just going to vote you out the next term. We'll get it done. That's how you get things done. You let us candidates know what you want and people in Congress what you want, and we better get it done. Now, as far as our border, 100%. Build that wall. Build it as far. I'm sorry, I know I talk a lot, I apologize for that, but I do believe that it's the greatest Trojan horse. I've said this over the last 3-4 years, not only through the poker communities, but through the political communities. It's the greatest threat to our safety, our democracy, or our republic as I've ever seen before in our life. And I'd love to get into that subject more. I will give back the mic to who's ever turn it is next for your next question.
Mr. Schwartz?
I have 4 priorities that I've stated on my literature. One is national service, which is near and dear to me. Everyone talks about their rights. What about your responsibilities? And I know we've got a lot of vets here, and people say, I don't want to be forced to do anything. Well, the people who are being forced to do things are people with very few choices. It's everybody's responsibility to serve our country. 2 is term limits. I think that's been covered. We'll need a constitutional amendment. Check Article 5 of the Constitution. 3 is our tax code. Our tax code really does not support the middle class, and I'm all for the 2017 Jobs and Tax Act, but we need to do better for our middle class. And then immigration. I want to close the border. Let's start over. I'm also very concerned about education. I was the last man standing on education savings accounts. I talked to Power to Parent yesterday. We're going to try and do something. And then finally, I think it's really important that we reestablish our country's position internationally. We were strong. We need to do that.
Thank you. Let's now turn to Ms. Brown.
You? There we go. What measures do you intend to implement to ensure transparency and accountability in federal agencies and programs?
Let's start with Mr. Johnson this time.
We're really fortunate in the military because the DoD and the VA both have really good Office of Inspector Generals, very good auditing. So that's something I'm not terribly concerned about. The bigger issue, I think, right now is the fact that there are agencies that don't. And we can start with the USPS, often hides some of its wasteful spending, some of its failures. But there needs to be more consistency throughout all agencies, throughout all cabinet level departments. And if everybody had the same sort of focus on making sure that taxpayer dollars were well spent, that agencies were run efficiently and effectively as the VA and particularly the DoD, we'd all be a lot better off. So as I've mentioned earlier, a lot of what I've done in my career is government oversight, government watchdog work. So I will be a leading voice in Congress to make sure that government is as open, transparent, and accountable to taxpayers as possible.
Mr. Nadell?
Well, absolutely. Any good businessman, and that's what I appreciated so much about Trump and how he brought this country back the way he did and why we need him so bad again. By the way, I just wanted to mention 339 accomplishments Trump did for our country, by the way. And he did it in 4 years. I don't know if a president's ever done it in a full term of 8 years. But yes, we have to cut the waste, absolutely, and a businessman will be able to see through this, get through the red tape. But you know what I believe in as well, is I believe in we the people, for the people, and by the people. So when I'm representing in Congress, I will represent all of you. So when you tell me what you want to get done, we will beat Washington at their own game. And I know how to do this. I am a gamesman. I'm not here to let people be like regular politicians. I'm here to be different. I'm not here to be a politician. I'm being here to be a statesman. So these are things we all need to get together with. I love that yellow flag. It makes me think of soccer. Okay, well, we'll get back on the next one.
And just to clarify, the yellow flag means you still have 15 seconds. It's a warning, and then the red flag means you're done. So,
Well, thank you.
Mr. Schwartz?
Our country has changed. When the country was founded, there were 5 million people stretched along the eastern seaboard.
I'm sorry, 1 second. Can we just, you're talking, we can't hear the candidate.
Do I get to start over?
Yeah, please.
Okay, thank you. Our country has changed. When this country was founded, when the Constitution was written, there were 5 million people stretched along the eastern seaboard. We now have 330 million stretched across the continent. With that, our government has grown. And I think we're at a point now, when you talk about transparency, we need to disaggregate our government. And that means to really continue to break it up. And I think one of the geniuses of the people who wrote the Constitution was the separation of powers, but the distribution of power across multiple agencies and across multiple states. What I would really like to see is our beginning to understand that our government has to be broken down. When I built a business, we were taken over by a company from London, and it was still the individual parts that really made the profits. And I would say that to make our government more transparent, we need to continue to break the government down into its different parts, both nationally and federally.
Ms. Helgelien?
So we have to inspect what we expect, right? That's what we have to do, and we haven't been doing that. We have to get back to looking at all of our agencies and seeing how supportive they've been doing it. Are they actually doing what they were meant to do? We have so many times that our elected officials will create something, or agencies will create something and go on and say, okay, here's what we're going to do, and then we're giving them so much money to do it, and unfortunately they're not meeting their goals. So we have to always make sure that we go back and we inspect what we expect them to do. I've done that in the state Senate. I'm known to be, and especially as women, we know that we want to make sure that things are getting done. We have to meet deadlines, and our agencies have to be making sure that they're doing that. So that's something that I will be more than happy to head up when I'm in Congress.
Thank you. Mr. Haynes, do you have a question for the, Mr. Treffinger?
Thank you. And thank you all for being here. This question's for everyone. Number one, have you visited our southern border? And number two, aside from just a generic statement about closing the border, which I appreciate everyone seems on board with, what ideas are you bringing to the table to stem the tide of both illegal immigration as well as narcotics into this country?
We're going to start with Mr. Nadell this time.
Well, as I said before, one of my most serious issues is our southern border. These people that are coming here, I don't believe they're just for votes. You don't allow 7 to 10 million people coming from all over the world, basically, and loading their prisoners from Haiti, the Congos, Venezuela, military men coming from China. I saw thousands of young men coming out here. They're covering all 50 states. So obviously the problem we have right now, it's called the Democrats, unfortunately. It's no longer the Democrats that we believe in. These people are out here, in my opinion, to destroy this country. And so what we need to do is absolutely protect our borders if we have to put our own military there to protect these people. I mean, the money we're giving them, the cost, we could have fixed all these problems that we have in this country for the money that we are giving away to these illegal aliens, and that's what they are. They're not undocumented. They're illegal aliens that aren't supposed to be in this country in the first place. And I will make sure we get rid of them and send them back where they're supposed to be.
Let's go to Mr. Schwartz next.
To answer your question, I have not visited the southern border. It's something that I'm in the process of hoping to plan. But to your larger question in terms of the immigration policy, I don't have any easy answers. It's a very complex issue. Do we let my grandmother in, or do we let Harvard PhDs in? Do we keep the parole system, which gives the president more authority to let people in for political asylum? What do we do with that? How about the whole category of visas? They're from A to Z. It's a difficult proposition, and what I've said is let's close the border. Let's start from ground zero and try and rebuild this. I respect the immigrants. This is a country that's built by immigrants. We all know many who are here, and they need to be respected. But our values as a country also need to be respected, and that would be my objective.
Thank you. Ms. Helgelien?
So in April, we will be going down to the border. I actually been invited to the Arizona border and the Texas border to go and check it out and visit. We need to, and I'm sorry, there was another part of your question.
Just an overall direction for dealing with the immigration and narcotics trade coming through the border, aside from just closing the border.
Okay, thank you. So the first thing that we have to focus on is stopping the bleeding. Yes, of course, we need to address our immigration, but we have to address who's coming in. So we've got to stop the bleeding. We do have to finish the border wall. We need more technology on the border wall, more staff. We know that fentanyl is flooding in. I've had a friend who had buried their 20-something-year-old daughter because of fentanyl. Just 2 months later, one of her children's friends who attended the funeral, she was She also died from fentanyl. We've had to deal with human trafficking. These are all real world issues that are affecting us here at home. They're not just political points. So we absolutely have to focus on securing the border, on fixing the wall, on getting more technology, more ICE agents, and more border security. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Johnson?
Thank you, Justice. The last time I was at the border was during the Obama administration. The easiest way to address the border is by enforcing existing laws. Of course, we all believe that we need to secure